Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Some of you it may be morning on the West Coast, but welcome to our first of two webinars with the American Association of Community Colleges this week, focused on apprenticeships. I'm Craig McAtee. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the National Coalition of Advanced Technology Centers, which is a long-time affiliated council of NCATC. And I'm going to give you a 2-minute overview of our organization so you know where we fit in the mix. And real quick, our 4 pillars on this slide, basically the future of work. We've been a future of work focus since we were came about in 35 years ago almost. And today it's all about Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing, smart automation. Our second pillar is all about what we're talking about today with AACC, work-based learning, whether it's a full-blown registered apprenticeship or internship co-op or even entrepreneurship. We support that across the nation with all of our members. And our third pillar is really about competency-based education, anything we can do to have applied learning and skills part of the mix. And if it can be coupled with industry recognized credentials, all the better for a lot of employers. And last, but certainly not least, the one that wraps around all the other 3 pillars is our adult basic education with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness of all of those underserved and underrepresented populations, how to raise all boats together in all that we do. Our membership out of the 1,150 plus community colleges across the nation, we have about 170 in these locations as our little dots across the nation from Hawaii to Maine to Florida show. But we've also got 48 corporate strategic partners. John said maybe we should have a list of those that aren't members yet, but we are still looking at bringing on more that really help our colleges focus on hands-on experiential learning on a daily basis for those skills needed for industry, whether it's online, in person, or otherwise. We also work with 8 of the 19 Manufacturing USA institutes. The Innovation Institutes were stood up over 10 years ago, focusing on everything from 3D additive manufacturing to robotics, to flexible electronics, composites, and all those with the red triangles above them, we work with on a regular basis to bring the great work that the Community College Network's doing into their knowledge base and vice versa for all the emerging trends and technology that they represent back to the students that you all serve. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce John Dyer, who's with us today from AACC. He's kind of pinch hit for Jen Worth, I believe. And I'm going to turn it over and bring down my screen. John Dyer, why don't you have a few words with our audience today?
Thank you, Craig. It's a great privilege to be with you all today. I'm John Dyer. I'm the Associate Vice President for Workforce Development at the American Association of Community Colleges. I'm joined by my colleagues Adrian Summers, whom you will meet shortly, as well as Wayne Wheeler and Rosie Gabriel today. AACC has a lot of affiliated councils, somewhere between 25 and 30. Of those, there are a number that are focused particularly in the workforce space. And as Craig mentioned, we have had a long and fruitful and very important relationship with NCATC. And it's one that matters a great deal to us. When we first undertook 4 years ago a cooperative agreement with the United States Department of Labor to expand community college apprenticeships, there was always an intention on our part to scale that work across our broader network. There are a lot of colleges involved in it. You'll perhaps hear some of those details from Adrian a little bit later, but not every college is involved in that initiative. We wanted to make sure that every college had the opportunity to hear about it. So when we began thinking about how we were going to scale our messaging, we looked to our affiliated councils, and the first one on the list was NCATC, who has a long and storied history in working in fields that are often apprenticeable. And Craig very graciously agreed to put together a couple of webinars for us to do so. The initiative you're going to hear about today is one that's very important to us. It's one of the larger ones we've ever had and the Department of Labor has ever granted. It's one that has garnered a lot of attention from our leadership, our board, our CEO, Dr. Walter G. Bumpus. And so there's a lot of attention on this work, and we are, I think, justifiably proud of what the Expanding Community College Apprenticeship team has accomplished. So I want to thank you all for being here today. I hope you have lots of questions that Adrian will be anxious to answer. And with no further ado, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Adrian Summers. Adrian.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. I am going to share my screen. And you should be seeing the full screen. Is that correct?
Everything looks great.
Great, thank you. So today we're going to talk about implementing a registered apprenticeship program. Want to just shout out to the ECCA team. Jen Worth is the Senior Vice President, Workforce and Economic Development. I am the Executive Director of Apprenticeships. Letitia Ford is our Project Monitoring Specialist, and Rosie Gabriel is our Project Coordinator. And we've been joined by Wayne Wheeler, who is now assisting us in coordinating a lot of the webinars that we've been delivering, and also collaborating and organizing our May meeting for many of you that may be traveling to DC to learn more about apprenticeships. So we're going to talk today about our virtual apprenticeship network toolkit. The Virtual Apprenticeship Network Toolkit, which we refer to as the VAN. It was developed as part of the $20 million United States Department of Labor Initiative Cooperative Agreement with AACC. The VAN is an interactive web-based toolkit, and as you're figuring out about apprenticeships, it is a wonderful resource and tool to design, build, implement, expand, sustain, and evaluate registered apprenticeship programming at community colleges. Also, we have put together many resources that are promising practices, success stories from many of our ECCA partners and our external partners. And then we also have a whole host of ECCA data. And ECCA is the Expanding Community Colleges Apprenticeship. Again, we refer to that as ECCA data, and a lot of the DCI outcomes that are part of this project. So the VAN was set up to have 5 themes of successful practice. It's how to implement a registered apprenticeship program, effective messaging on the value of registered apprenticeship programs, managing and sustaining a registered apprenticeship program, the ECCA data, and the quarterly showcase of ECCA partner projects. So the virtual apprenticeship network is set up like a honeycomb. So as the various topics are listed within the honeycomb and the hexagon, once you click on any icon, it will open up a page. And the page that we're opening up today is implementing a registered apprenticeship program. As part of the registered apprenticeship program and how to implement, there are 6 areas in this particular section. I'm going to briefly do an overview of each of those sections. So I'm going to start first with assessing the college readiness for registered apprenticeships. When you are assessing college readiness, there are 4 key areas to understand and in order to assess if you're ready to begin. The first area is to gain a clear understanding of the basic components of registered apprenticeship. This is a paid position, offers on-the-job training. It has related technical instruction, also referred to as RTI, mentorship, and typically credentials. Credentials could be in the form of some certificates, an AA degree, short-term training that leads to some type of occupational credential. The second area is to determine the labor market and the industry partner needs. And this is the needs in your community. And your community could be different than your neighbor's community. So this is the needs based on your community college area that is served. You want to look at what the current labor markets are in your area, and do employers understand registered apprenticeship? That is certainly something that I would really strongly suggest, because even though we may understand the language, many of the employers do not understand truly what a registered apprenticeship is and how it could benefit them in scaling their talent pipeline. The third area is to conduct inventory of your college's existing assets to determine your college's ability to satisfy the labor market and industry partner needs. Look at your existing relationships. What is your infrastructure and equipment in order to deliver registered apprenticeship? And this may not necessarily be something that your college typically houses, but potentially one of your partners, you may be able to develop some type of agreement where you can hold the lab space or the classroom in part of their facility to have access to the tools and the equipment that you may need. Look at your existing curriculum. Registered apprenticeship is not something where you have to reinvent the wheel. You can simply use your existing curriculum, and it's how you package it or how you pair it in order to offer the related instruction, which is needed for your employer partners. And then finally, look at your financial resources. What does your college have available? Are there other partners that may be able to be incorporated and brought into the college as part of an employer financial sharing ability? The fourth area to look in order to assess the college readiness is to assess your college-wide components and departments that will support the registered apprenticeship program development, adoption, and success. And I can tell from experience that almost all areas of your college will be touched by apprenticeship. So please look at your admissions and your enrollment, your recruitment and marketing, your employer relations, physical support, faculty involvement, and possibly training for your faculty, and your workforce development. Workforce development is a key component with registered apprenticeship because your workforce development area typically has a pulse on what your community employers need. The second area of implementing a registered apprenticeship program is sponsor, intermediary, or related instruction provider, identifying the ideal role for your institution. There are three options. The first option is where you, as the college, provide the related technical instruction or the RTI only. The second area is to serve as an intermediary for registered apprenticeship programs. And the third area is registered apprenticeship program sponsor. And as a sponsor, you're typically delivering both the related instruction, technical instruction, as well as you're managing and doing all of the necessary paperwork and collection of data that's needed in order to be in compliance with the Department of Labor. The choice of which of the three options you choose may be determined based on the state in which the college resides. However, there are the three options, but it may be limited based on what your state allows. The next area is identifying the potential strategies in right-to-work states versus non-right-to-work states. And there are 4 standards. The first standard is an individual non-joint. This is where you have one employer and no intermediary, such as a labor union. The second area is a group non-joint. You would have multiple employers and will not include an intermediary or a labor union. The third area is an individual joint, and that's where you would have one employer, and it may include an intermediary such as a labor union. And then finally, the last area is a group joint, and that's where you have multiple employers, and it will also include that intermediary such as a labor union. The next area in this section is establishing a registered apprenticeship program at a college. There are 5 key components that are necessary to be reviewed when you're establishing a registered apprenticeship program. The first area is to define your vision, and what your vision is may be something different at another community college. So this would be the vision for you and your institution. Develop your internal systems to support your registered apprenticeship. And again, I just mentioned that almost all areas are touched by apprenticeship. So please incorporate and engage all of those areas for a successful apprenticeship experience. The third area is to identify your champion or your cheerleader. This could be a dean, an assistant dean. This could be someone from your workforce development unit. This could be a faculty member, or this could be someone that is new and is joining your team to be your champion. But definitely give them the keys in order to be successful. The fourth area is to define and build your program model. And each occupation may have a slightly different model. So it does not mean that one model fits all. The fifth area is to implement and scale your registered apprenticeship. And this could be where you're starting and then you're scaling your apprenticeship model. The next area is calculating the return on investment of the college. For a very short overview, this is how are you going to grow your revenue stream? This is a short-term return on investment, and the short-term return on investment typically is your benefits minus your cost equals your return on your investment. So for example, if you have $2 for your benefit, it costs you $1, you'll have $1 of return on investment. But certainly there are many aspects to look and review when it comes to apprenticeship and your institution. And finally, the last area of implementing a registered apprenticeship program is looking at registering your new registered apprenticeship standards, your programs in state apprenticeship agency states versus the Office of Apprenticeship states. So this is defined in 2 key aspects. So there are, in some states, there is an Office of Apprenticeship, and that's referred to as an OA state. And that has United States Department of Labor oversight. The second aspect is the Department of Labor recognized state apprenticeship agencies called the SAA states. Currently, it's about 50% are OA states and 50% of the states are SAA states. However, there has been some of the OA states that are moving towards the SAA states. This is also an area and an office with navigators or personnel that you should definitely engage to assist you in your journey with apprenticeship. As part of the VAN Toolkit, we have many promising practices. 3 key practices that are part of implementing an apprenticeship program: City Colleges of Chicago, the Kentucky Community and Technical College System, and the Nashville State Community College, which is located in Tennessee. And they are all found on our website, and that is the AACC website homepage. There is a link for quick links, and under the quick links, there is the VAN, which is the Virtual Apprenticeship Network. I do want to talk a little bit about the ECCA data. Again, as John mentioned, the ECCA project, it began in March of 2019, and it was to go through February 28th of 2022. We did receive a no-cost extension, and it will go through June 30th for collection of data. It goes a little bit longer for finishing up the project, but essentially we'll have data through June 30th of this year. So the ECCA data is a key component of part of this program. And this was almost a $20 million program. It's $19.952,700 that were provided to AACC as a sole source, as a cooperative agreement, to be able to implement apprenticeships with community colleges. You can see our data. That is March 1st of 2019 through December the 31st of 2021. There were 17,764 apprentices that were served and 584 occupations that were represented as in the apprenticeship aspect of the ECCA project. The initial goal was to serve 16,000 apprentices by February the 28th. And as part of that, 62% of those 17,764 apprentices were new employees. So these were new students, and they were typically coming to the community college to engage in apprenticeship. 38% of apprentices were existing employees that were incumbent workers. So here you have an employer partner who is going to be sending their employees to your community college. So again, increases that enrollment, and we had approximately 38% existing employees. This project had 106 community colleges, which were 58 individual with 8 consortia. That's why the total of 106 community colleges were represented. We had 31 colleges that were the sponsoring registered apprenticeship program. We had 31 states and territories that were represented, 8 industry global partners, and then there were approximately 54 executives that formed the ECCA Advisory Board for Apprenticeship. And I am pleased to say that as of yesterday, our new number of participants served surpassed 20,000. So we're at 20,018 as of this morning, and over 600 occupations that are now represented. Again, for those of you who are exploring apprenticeship and looking at what other states and community colleges may be offering, we do have an interactive map. And in this case, the screenshot is hovering over Illinois. We have 3 ECCA partners in the state of Illinois. They represent 87 registered apprenticeships, and the major occupations are agriculture, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, hospitality, IT, and transportation. So, and if you're interested in other states and what they may be doing, you can hover over the state, and an interactive map similar to the one shown will pop up with the number of partners, the apprentices, and the major occupations that are represented in that particular state. And as part of the ECCA data, we have created one-pagers for each of the community colleges, each of the consortia, and then we do have an overall data representing a one-pager data that is representing the entire project. And that is for each of the colleges that are participating with the ECCA project. And we do have one territory, Guam, is also participating in this project. And this is the overall one-pager that is provided for all to see. This is currently on our website now. And this is the same data that I just shared. In addition, some of the additional things that are offered on the one-pager is the characteristics of registered apprentices, also the industry sectors of program sponsors, and the training approach of registered apprenticeships. I will note that as of December, we were running at about 79% were trade occupations, your construction, your HVAC, your electrical, your welding. And we had about 31% of other occupations. Other occupations included the healthcare, finance, IT, etc. There has been a little bit of a shift. Currently, this March 31st ended a new quarter for us. And as of March 31st, that percentage had changed to about 63% is the trade occupations, and about 37% are the other occupations. And the other occupations, again, are your healthcare, your IT. So that is really great news to see that other industries are exploring and adopting apprenticeship. Obviously, we all know that the trades have been doing apprenticeships for many years, and they really understand how it does work and how it can benefit both the employer as well as the apprentice. So it's great to see some of these other occupations that are now adopting. So we have plenty of resources to share with you, and this is all located on the Virtual Apprenticeship Network, the VAN Toolkit. Apprenticeship.gov is a wonderful source of information. There's also a section at apprenticeship.gov on legislation, regulations, and guidance. There is a quick start toolkit, building registered apprenticeship programs. The Healthcare Career Advancement Program, that's a toolkit for high road apprenticeships in the healthcare industry. There is the Harper College Apprenticeship Toolkit, Connecting Apprenticeship and Higher Education, 8 recommendations. And then there is a high quality pre-apprenticeship programs that are specifically geared for community colleges. And at this time, I'd like to be able to open it to any questions. I see that there are some things in the chat, but I believe Rosie or Wayne also put some links directly in the chat for you to explore. That's part of the Virtual Apprenticeship Network. Are there any questions? If you would like to unmute, I'm happy to answer. So the resources have been typed into the chat, as well as the actual page is the AACC homepage, which is aacc.nche, stands for National Council of Higher Education, .edu. Once you're there, there is a tab about halfway through that lists quick links. And you'll see right there on the quick links, a direct link to the Virtual Apprenticeship Network Toolkit.
Amanda Sizemore has her mic open, and she has a question, I think, Adrian.
Sure.
Go ahead, Amanda. You're from St. Charles Community College.
My question right now is, are you working specifically with that K-12 to post-secondary population in any parts of this curriculum?
So yes, there are some states and colleges that do have a relationship with their K through 12 partners. Many different scenarios, but one of the most popular is the K through 12 offers a pre-apprentice opportunity so that once the students are finished with K through 12, they can transition directly into the Registered Apprenticeship Program. There's other options where some of the seniors may be able to literally start their apprenticeship at that point in time, and then after they graduate from high school, they can transition right over to the Registered Apprenticeship Program at the college. other questions? So one thing I did want to invite you to, I don't know if anyone on here is attending the AACC National Convention that is happening later this week. Please, I will be attending. If you have additional questions on apprenticeship, please seek me out. I'm happy to be able to sit with you and answer and brainstorm any of the questions. I came directly from a college that was part of this ECCA initiative prior to coming to AACC. I built 11 occupations in less than 3 years, a combination of predominantly other occupations in the IT space. Also, we did have 2 occupations that HVAC and electric. Construction management was considered a non-traditional because of the management aspect. And our programs ranged anywhere from 1 year up to 4 years for some of the trade aspects. All a little different. We used an apprenticeship model, but when we designed the curriculum and the way that the courses were offered, many of them were unique and individual to what the industry needed. And in addition, Craig, I believe there may be some people on this call that may be traveling to DC in the middle of May for our DC conference and meeting. We'll be discussing more about apprenticeship, and we'll also have the Department of Labor and some other people, special guests that will be joining us to be able to share some of their stories and experiences with apprenticeship for everyone, to help them begin either the exploration, the implementation, or the scaling of apprenticeship.
Yes, Adrian, I know there are 3 names on this Zoom today that will be with us in DC next month, and we're looking forward to that. One of the questions we continually get from the field of employers and the colleges working with them is how many of them would be willing to hire a 16 or 17-year-old in a youth or pre-apprenticeship program. And there are less of them available right now than we want. And of course, there's a lot of liability and a lot of concern about safety, which is all important. But some of the folks I've worked with, like in Alabama, Mercedes specifically, actually has 1 or 2 buildings dedicated to 16 to 18-year-old youth apprenticeships in the manufacturing environment. So there are models out there that we've become aware of. Can you just enlighten anybody of similar stories about youth or pre-apprenticeship programs?
Sure. So I came from the state of Maryland prior to coming to AACC, and Maryland does have a specific youth apprenticeship program. It is designed for high school students. They do call it Youth Apprenticeship of Maryland. And a high school student, their requirement is 450 hours of on-the-job training. And that can be credited once they go to a registered apprenticeship program. Those 450 hours can be credited towards that registered apprenticeship program. And again, they're working with their employers in order to be able to host those 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds, because there are many more questions, especially around safety. But I encourage you to invite if you have a state office of apprenticeship, or if you go directly to the U.S. Department of Labor, engage with the representatives that are within your state and have them join you in the discussions, because that is something that between the 2 of you maybe offers some more credibility, where the employers are going to research this and just to figure out ways that this may work specifically for them.
Great example. Any other questions for Adrian before we start to close down our webinar today? We'd love to have any questions that you have burning on your top of your mind for implementing an apprenticeship program or expanding it in your college or industry.
Any ideas that you're exploring, anything that you're questioning? I know many times it's very important to truly engage those employers to really have those employers understand what apprenticeship is. It normally doesn't happen on that first touch. It normally takes multiple touches. The way that I would engage employers in the community that I was employed with prior to coming to AACC was we would have employer engagement information sessions. With COVID, initially we had them all in person very early in the morning at the college campus. That always would typically work for most employers. It was something they could do at the beginning of their day and then still go off to work and feel like they were productive for the day. But obviously with COVID, that introduced all of the webinars and the Zoom technology. Before I left, we were doing a hybrid model. So we would invite people if they would like to come visit our campus. But then there are some employers that we knew and understood the time commitment. So I set it up so that it could also be viewed as a live webinar. So that's just another aspect of engaging those employers. Creating advisory boards so that you truly understand the needs of what's needed for the occupations. And what you find from one occupation may be slightly different in a different occupation. So it's important to have the various occupations represented with some subject matter experts and some true professionals that are working in the industry in order to help with that guidance. The curriculum that you already have should be enough to be able to package your related instruction. It's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about what you have currently at your, already teaching. I would ask the employers for their job descriptions, and then we would be able to really look at the keywords and the skills that were required or being asked of an employee. And then I could go back to our curriculum experts and really match up the courses that we offered, matching the skills that were being presented on job postings. And with doing that, I could then develop a whole host of coursework that could be used to develop as the package for the apprenticeship related instruction. Again, I always looked at how can we look at our certificates, our short-term training? Are there some courses that once complete the courses that it allows an individual to sit for a national certification or a state certification? So really looking beyond the actual coursework, what are some of the end components that could assist with having those options for the employees, which would be the apprentices.
And Adrian, a lot of folks just assume, but the overarching part of the community college's involvement in apprenticeship for all these decades, really, and then moving forward in exponential ways over the last 3 years or more with the ACC's initiatives on ECCA, is that it's credit bearing. Most of the courses that are in these apprenticeships, no matter what they're in, whether it's manufacturing, construction, healthcare, or finance, or IT, they're credit bearing, so they lead to the degree as well as complement the portfolio of the students that are apprentices. Is that pretty much true from what your perspective is?
So it's related instruction is related instruction. It does not matter if it's on the credit side or the workforce development non-credit side, or it can be a combination of both. For example, construction management was a credit certificate that was offered, but we also added CPR and an OSHA 30 course. The CPR and the OSHA 30 course were not credit courses, but they were located on our continuing education side. We coupled them in time periods where a student was not attending class, and that was all allowed to be calculated towards the related instruction. For apprenticeships, the related instruction must be at least 144 hours per year and 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. Most community colleges have much more than 144 hours of training per year, but it's something to look at both sides of the college to see which is the better fit. We had some certificates. We did some Azure, Microsoft Azure training that was part of a software development program. It had a couple of credit courses, but because that Azure training was very specialized, we did not have it in a credit offering at that point in time. We did put it on the non-credit side and offer it as non-credit.
And I remember in the earlier days when I was still at Tri-C, I see Vera Lewis Jasper on. She was a great colleague and friend and still is at Tri-C during those early days in 2000. Our apprentices a lot of times would have programs that, like you just described, Adrian, where the non-credit would take over, but they would also be offered as special classes that would gain credit in the future once they were passed through the curriculum review committees. And then that was always a pathway for improving those things as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I can share that our electric and our HVAC programs were delivered on the non-credit side because the curriculum already existed. We were just facilitating that curriculum model and approved curriculum that was being taught. However, I worked very hard to have our curriculum people review the curriculum to be able to, at the end of, a student is there for 4 years. So at the end of the 4 years, if there could be some articulated academic credit towards an AA degree. Typically at the end, they could be awarded somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 to 24 academic credits. So that was about a third of the way towards their AA degree. So that was something to keep that motivation in order to complete that AA degree. And I believe
Great.
Doug may have a question.
Yes.
Hi, thanks. I, just by way of introduction, I founded the nonprofit Industry Reimagine 2030, and I am squarely in the camp of the value of apprenticeships. So what I'm about to ask about is from being squarely in the camp of how do we expand and scale the apprenticeship program like 100-fold over where it is today. So the first question I have is one, I love the dashboards that you have, but what I notice is that there's enormous, Adrian, variability from state to state to state in how many apprenticeship programs there are and how many people are participating in the apprenticeship programs. So I'm curious about what are the key factors that are accounting for the variability, all right, in terms of one at the state level, what accounts for the variability, all right, because we want to push for state policies in that regard, but at the community college level, what accounts for the variability at the college level, because that's something that the people on this call can directly do something about. So do you have any insight about what accounts for the variability in the apprenticeship programs?
So one of the white elephants in the room is this project started March 1st of 2019. We had no idea what was going to be around the corner in 2020. With that being said, this particular grant was used by many colleges to basically start apprenticeship. So the momentum was, ramping up. They were getting started. They had employers on board. They were ready to start doing some implementation, and boom, the colleges were shut down. Many colleges had to reimagine and reconvene of how they were going to continue operating the apprenticeships in that particular space. Many of them, it paused for a period of time for some. I can say the institution that I was at, we didn't pause at all with the apprenticeships. We kept going and we even ramped up during that period of time. But that was working with our college officials. So we had very special permissions. So the students who were in the IT could come into the lab one day a week, and we split the class in half. So half the class came in on a Tuesday and the other half came in on a Thursday. So that's one way of we kind of really took the bull by the horns and tried to figure out ways to keep the momentum going. With some of those colleges, there was a pause. The momentum has reemerged and we have seen some tremendous numbers. Obviously, you can see from 17,000 all the way up to over 20,000 in less than 3 months, 4 months, I guess. That's a fair amount of apprentices in a very short amount of time. We're seeing a lot of new occupations. Some of the colleges started apprenticeship.
Can you repeat the statistic that you breezed by something so fast? I just thought I heard a big number, but I wasn't quite sure what you said, Adrian.
Right, sure. So in December, we had over 17,000 apprentices as part of this initiative on December the 31st. Yesterday, we went over 20,000. So that is a pretty significant number between January 1st and yesterday, so the middle of April. That shows that the community colleges are beginning to ramp up again and to really be able to increase and scale those apprentices. There could be many other factors because, again, unfortunately, this data, we're not going to truly be able to see completers. The task was to serve 16,000 apprentices. We did do that, but of those of those 20,000, we don't have a lot of data for completers because they haven't all completed the program yet. There's very few that have completed. So it's hard to give you an exact why those numbers are the way they are, because we have that extra little thing of COVID that's in there that did have an impact. And we may never, hopefully, let's knock on wood, that we don't see that type of thing happen again, because hopefully next time we're prepared of what to do and how to ramp up. So that's tough looking at that overall data when there's other factors that are involved that are really out of our control. But I would tend to say it's because there were many colleges that were just starting into apprenticeship with this particular project.
Thanks. One of the things that I found, is that there's enormous insight available in increasing the performance of anything when you start to understand the variability that naturally occurs. And just by kind of highlighting the variability, oftentimes it spurs people to go, oh, there's something I could do about that, or there's something I can do about that. So I think that, the dashboard is just terrific. And the more that we could get insights into what accounts, not what caused the variability, but just how we would describe the variability.
Right. Well, and one of the things that I mentioned,
Sure.
And one of the things I mentioned earlier was the fact that through December the 31st, we were operating at about 79% of the occupations were trade occupations, which they do apprenticeship very well. They've been doing it for many, many years and are very versed in how to operate, and especially how to operate during the pandemic. Most of those particular occupations continued. I can say that from December through the end of March, our other occupations went from about 31% to about 37%. That's a nice increase in 3 months in that other occupations, because that means your IT, your healthcare, your finance, the other occupations are now seriously taking a look at apprenticeships and how it can benefit them. And I think by having those success stories and having those real live examples, that will help scale other colleges to be able to do that. And again, it's having a pulse on your community. What is the labor needs in your community that can assist with apprenticeship? It's a very strong model. The success rate from the Department of Labor of a completer is 94%. That's much higher than any completer that you'll have attending an open enrollment course at a community college. And it's, again, that return on investment, because most apprenticeships are anywhere from a year to 4 years or longer. And You can map out the entire pathway from beginning to end, what courses they'll take each time period, each semester. And you know that those seats are going to be filled each semester because they are there for the apprenticeship program. An open enrollment student, sometimes you don't know if they're coming back the next semester. Life happens and there's not a guarantee. This does have a stronger guarantee, so that return on investment, you know you're going to be able to fill those courses and can plan accordingly.
I hate to jump in. We could probably talk about this another 45 minutes, but we're already over about 5. And I know your time is very valuable. You probably got another webinar coming up soon. And we have one tomorrow with you on managing and sustaining. Once you've implemented, how do you sustain and manage a registered apprenticeship program? That's at 2 o'clock Eastern time. So please look for that if you haven't already signed up for it tomorrow. We've recorded today's session. It'll be on NCATC's website within the next 48 hours. So if you'd like to recap or share it with somebody else. But Adrian, I can't tell you and your team how much I appreciate all that you're doing to keep this going and growing every day. And anything we can do at NCATC or with these great attendees today, please let us know and we'll keep it going too.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to meeting some of you at our AACC annual convention in New York and then later in May in DC. So thanks again, Craig. Appreciate sharing all the information.
All right. Well, we'll see you soon and take care of yourselves, everyone. Have a great rest of the day and thank you for being with us.